Obviously, there's progress in that they are leaving right now, but as far as some deal that was struck to get them out, the answer is no. I think what you saw is you saw a federal government and an administration that thought that they were going to break the people of Minneapolis down. They thought that we were going to back down and sort of kowtow to whatever it is that they were looking to get done, not just locally in Minneapolis, but nationwide. They were looking to implement a national agenda based on coercing us to change local policy. And here's the thing, we didn't. The people of Minneapolis stood up. They stood up for their neighbors. They loved on each other. And I think that's the kind of patriotism that is ultimately going to get us through this.
That was Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey speaking to my colleague Chris Hayes. You can catch the entire interview tonight at 8 o'clock on All In. We are back with the Senator, Miles and John. John Heilemann, I want to come to you on this, what the country has seen out of the leaders of Minneapolis. And I'm coming to you instead of the Senator because I don't want to make her uncomfortable. But there is something different in how Minneapolis and Minnesota have dealt with Donald Trump. And there is some pattern for people like you and me who have been covering Donald Trump for 10 years. When people fight back, he just moves on. I mean, he doesn't really, he really does gravitate toward the low-hanging fruit. And when people stand up to him, it's not that he likes it or hates it. He just moves on. What is your sense of sort of the lesson in Donald Trump that Minnesota has taught the country?
Well, I think to prioritize these things importantly, this is the thing I'm about to say is something that Minneapolis has in common with other places, but it's really important for everybody else to always think about, which is, and the leaders in Minneapolis and in Minnesota have made this really clear. Nonviolence, crucial. They are trying to provoke violent responses in these places, and if you give them violence, that will only escalate things. It will only lead to more bloodshed, and it will also give them the upper hand politically, because that's what they want to make people think, that all these people in these places that are exercising, that are fighting back, are instigators and are anti-American and so on. So that's the first thing. And you heard Mayor Frey there with Chris Hayes talking about a definition of patriotism that is built around love and nonviolence and not the opposite. But the thing you're talking about, Nicole, is something that we've seen in many, many occasions in many, many forums over the course of the last year. And it's a very familiar phrase to you and to all of our panel today. It's taco. It's another version of the taco thing. You saw it on Greenland. You saw it on tariffs after Liberation Day. In those cases, in Jerome Powell, in those cases, you saw it from the market. The market stood up to Donald Trump and he tacoed. He chickened out. He moved on to the next thing. Well, I mean, I can't say how obvious a lesson this is to anybody who's ever been on a schoolyard, but to all these big media companies who decided to capitulate, you know, what's the lesson? The lesson is if you give the schoolyard bully your lunch, he doesn't walk away and say, thank you for lunch. He comes back the next day and says, please give me dinner, and also give me your allowance, and also give me your car keys, and also give me whatever else that he wants to. That doesn't make him capitulating, bowing and scraping before Donald Trump gets you nothing but more abuse. And standing up to Donald Trump gets you taco. You get Trump who says, you know, he is not fully insensate to political stimulus. And so it's like, if you stand up to him and your cause is righteous and you stand up in the right way, he will back down. None of that undercuts the points that we've all been making here about the long-term threats that he poses and how this fight isn't over and how he's not moving on in the grand macro sense. He's going to keep trying to probe for weaknesses and trying to get done what he wants to get done. But in the moment, when he comes to your doorstep, when the bully shows up, the right thing to do is not hand him your lunch money, but to kick him in the nuts.
Senator, you're welcome to pick up on John's point, or I'll give you another entry point if you like. What is the rebuilding, and when can it start?
Yeah. I mean, I'll take both the end of the last one, and then I'll take the new entry point. Okay. Probably not the kick in the nuts part. You know, I think what makes the leaders of Minnesota special is the people of Minnesota. But if every leader that you see before you on TV at a press conference, behind them are tens of thousands of Minnesota hockey moms with minivans and whistles, daycare dads with pickup trucks delivering groceries, imams, pastors, rabbis with unwavering faith, labor leaders with iPhones. These are the people of Minnesota, and they are the ones who are showing up through their leaders all the time. They are just, leaders are reflecting what is on the ground. I cannot overstate how deeply organized we are and how hyper-locally we are organized. And it is just spread across the state. And that's what you're seeing in the leaders, is the people of Minnesota. What comes next, I will say, we want ICE out of Minnesota, and that has not happened yet. Regardless of what has been said at a press conference, it's not ended. We want our neighbors back. There are 3,000 of our neighbors that are missing, that have been disappeared, that have been sent to concentration camps in other states. We want them back. We want the children back. We want our neighbors back. And then we need accountability, because it's not just the executions of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. There have been thousands of people who have been terrorized, detained for no reason, their homes broken into, their cars crashed into. I mean, they've arrested journalists, both national and independent journalists in Minnesota. There is a lot of accountability that needs to happen with Secretary Noem, of course, but every person underneath her who executed this lawless surge. That needs to happen as well. And then we need repair. We've talked about the economic devastation, yes, but the children of Minnesota, like half of the kids in some of these districts aren't going to school right now because they're too afraid to leave their house. Small businesses are just crumbling under this surge. We need real repair. And that doesn't even begin to mention the restoration of the funding that they've already cut off from the state of Minnesota. So that is what repair will look like. And this has been like a natural disaster, but it was created by Trump and Republicans. We need that level of response.
Yeah, I mean, Miles, that's the through line, right? Trump is a disaster created by Trump.
He absolutely is. And I take that point on repair. And that's the optimistic fatalism you and I have talked about for years, Nicole, is at the risk of getting too philosophical. Nature destroys everything it creates, but it also creates from everything it destroys. It's been a very dark year. We probably have a few more very dark years. But on the back end of this, we have the opportunity to do some very serious civic rebuilding. And we don't have to wait until 3 years from now. Right now, the states are lighting the way for us. I mean, Minnesota nice has become something like Minnesota no nonsense, or maybe it's better to say Minnesota no surrender. And that attitude and that demeanor is going to be what we need to take into the rebuilding. And that's going to be not just hoping we can revert back to 2014 and the world is going to be that way and we're going to have strong inspector generals at agencies that will prevent these things from happening. We need some big reforms, but now is the moment to have those conversations. Just like we talked about the other week, we need a full overhaul of the Department of Homeland Security, and everything we've seen from Donald Trump shows us exactly why.